I'd like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of July 19th. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could please have a few moments of silence for John Avery, Daniel Kennard, and Sherry Gonzalez. Please be seated. May we please have the roll call?
Councilmember De La Rosa? Councilmember Lavelle?
Here.
Councilmember Ponce?
Here.
Councilmember Schickling?
Here.
Mayor Marshall?
Here.
And Councilmember De La Rosa?
I see her. She's on mute.
I see her.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm here.
City Manager, do we have any announcements or written communications?
Not for the city manager's office. Devin, I don't know if we have anything on your end.
The city clerk's office received 2 written communications regarding item number 10 on the agenda.
Thank you. Okay. Department head reports.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Welcome aboard, Member Mary Schickling. The harbor is now in full summer mode as visiting boaters take advantage of the warm summer conditions. Beaches and moorings remain full and occupied much of the time now. For those with dinghies at the dinghy docks, please check your boat regularly. With the seasonal south swells, we have seen an increase in the amount of sinking or damaged vessels along the dinghy docks. Tidal swings between the high and low tides create a lot of problems, especially during the low tides at the club dinghy dock. So keep an eye on your boat, check it often. Please, if operating your dinghy at night, keep the running lights on or carry a flashlight so that you can be seen by others. $938 patrol assist, of which 41 involved towing and 63 individuals of municipal code violations, and issued 2 citations for contaminating our waters and beaches. Laws on the pier. Patrol responded to 8 medical calls, the sheriff 7 times, and responded to the recent boat fire, which the chief will talk about. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
No, thank you. I know you guys have really been busy. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, City staff, City Attorney, Michael Alegria, Fire Chief. In June, we ran just under 80 medical calls and just over 30 fire calls. As far as the big boat fire incident last week, today we held an AAR, after action review of it, and then we also want to go in depth more on kind of like a teaching moment about it, a timeline with, we got great photos at the beginning, the middle, at the end, so that's gonna be a more in-depth report. To the Harbor Office called Sheriff's Station dispatched everybody. They arrived on scene, County Fire and Baywatch went out, pulled out a line, made entry, knocked down light smoke, made entry into the cabin and put a little bit of water on it. It seemed to be going okay, so they moved it to the rescue dock. And after that, the guys' conditions just kept getting worse and worse, and wasn't worth getting anybody hurt. We had all our gear on. The guys were inside the cabin trying to find the compartment to go. We used our thermal imagers, which you could usually hold out and see really good. Our poor firefighter was like this with the thermal imager because you couldn't see his hand. So it was blacked out conditions. It just got worse. They tried putting water. They put a lot of water. They put foam. We had 2 hose lines from the engine, and it got out of control. So they made the decision to tow it out and put it in a spot where they were on the phone with Coast Guard. They recommended a spot shallow, so during the salvage operation they could boom it. And then we were told Vessel Assist secured the vessel, and we maybe lost 7 to 8 gallons only after it sunk. So they recovered it that couple days later. And like I said, a more thorough report will come out later. Any questions?
Oh, great job. I'm glad nobody was injured, my goodness.
Yeah, nobody was hurt.
Or it didn't explode or something, you know? Jeez, yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I just commend you guys on a great job, everybody involved. It just,
Yeah.
to see that burning out there was, wow.
The photos that the community took were incredible to see them. on
Yeah, there was a
Facebook.
lot of photos.
Oh, and video is wonderful. Well, not wonderful, interesting to see.
I was on the mainland looking at ambulances, and I had a meeting the next morning, so I was just getting FaceTime videos the whole
Yeah,
time.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a good training exercise, just kind of trial by fire.
It was good. We've been training with Harbor a lot lately, so it's just more questions and more equipment and stuff that we need to talk about and keep doing.
Yeah.
But you did a great job.
It was a great learning experience. We learn on all types of calls. No 2 calls go the same way. So
Right.
we just got to get out there more on the boats to learn a little bit more about the engine compartments. There was carpet and furniture covering everything, so us not being on the boats at all the time, it's
Oh,
they
yeah.
did a great job. They tried really hard to stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Good job.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Joe Badali, Commander of Avalon Sheriff Station. Since my last report, we had 247 calls for service, 139 contact observations by the deputies themselves, 23 arrests, and 37 citations. And also want to make public awareness known of ongoing issues we're having with juveniles in the city. And we'll announce to you and to the general public and parents, hopefully you're listening, we'll be having 0 tolerance as it relates to curfew, unlicensed drivers, and any other violations, prohibited drinking, anything that they're doing. What we're hearing more and more and need to do is just get some more enforcement action taking place with some of the juveniles and cases that we're experiencing and some of the mischief they're causing. So public's made aware and you're made aware that we'll be out there in full force with 0 tolerance.
A couple of questions. I like the fact that you're giving us these numbers. This is really great. I don't know if it's possible to break them down a little bit more because I've noticed in your police log or whatever we call it, there's a lot of drunken publics. And I know that you're tolerant unless they're just being complete jerks, which I think we're all pretty comfortable with that. But I just a little further breakdown at some point, like domestic violence versus those kind of things. And I do have a question. I heard about some kids with fireworks and booze up at Burrito Point on the 4th of July. And I guess some of your department went up there and confiscated the alcohol, or had them correct me if I'm wrong, pour out the alcohol, this is how I heard it, pour out the alcohol and take the fireworks away. But I wondered, were parents involved? Was there any citations issued? Because that fire, the potential for fire is so insane that that's very concerning.
Definitely. I know that deputies did make contact. I don't know the full outcome of the enforcement effort that took place, but I'll report that back to you.
I mean, I don't believe there was really any action taken, but I'm happy to hear the way you're going in the future. I think you're treating our guests with respect and the residents as well, but they're kind of enough is enough, as you
Yes.
know.
Right.
As you know. So thank you. That's very encouraging.
Certainly.
Just a question I had mentioned with Dave, because I know you had been talking about enforcement and everything else. I would, in conjunction with the increased enforcement, like to also see us look at a deferment program that the city gets involved with. City Manager Maestros had mentioned that he had had one previously in his previous community. And as much as I want to see people who are making bad choices understand the consequences of their actions, I also would like to see if there's a way to try to get them off that path. I know that for some it may not happen, and for some it might. So if we can have that discussion after this meeting and make that a part of the process as well, that would be fantastic.
It's a great idea, yes.
Okay.
And to add to that, I talked to some gentlemen from ALADS, and I was talking about the youth, and they were gonna look into what diversion programs are over there that maybe we could glean from and get that going here.
Yeah.
And then meet with the school as well as, I mean, all of the interested parties, because
Right.
these kids are
Yeah.
school's gonna start again, and here we are.
Yesenia and I actually have a meeting with Emma, the principal, tomorrow, and then are hoping to come up with a scheduled plan to be able to not only have quarterly meetings with city and/or city staff, but also to start getting involved in more programs to make sure that everybody's chipping in to do this. It's not something that can just be done by one entity, one set of parents, one set of kids. It needs to be everyone that's making an effort. So, and then the other thing that I was just asked from us as council, even if they may not have earned it yet, is I would like us to start speaking with the kids in this community with at least a little more respect. They might be a pain in the you-know-what, and they might be awful or rude, and they might be making bad choices. They might be bored and doing stupid things like all of us did growing up here. It's part of the adjustment of learning to be an adult, but I also know that if we don't respect them, they're not gonna respect anybody either. So if we can at least start making that an effort as well, I would appreciate that. That's one of my personal goals. If you'd be willing to take it on too, that'd be great.
Any questions?
I do not remember their names, but didn't we have a gentleman and a young lady come about a couple meetings ago saying they did have a program?
That was a diversion program. It was more
Okay.
dealing with individuals and juveniles that are soon to be in the system, so to speak. It wasn't prevention, it was more diversion once they get into a bad predicament
Right.
and/or are facing the criminal justice system.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt Baker, Finance Department. Good evening, Council. I just have a couple items tonight. One, our May visitor-driven revenue reports are available on the city's website. May was another strong month. It wasn't the same double-digit increases we had seen over the past year or so, but May of last year set a pretty high bar, and the fact that we passed May of last year is still something to be excited about as far as revenues. It does look like we are plateauing at the level we were at last year, but again, the level we were at last year was really by far the best year on record we've had as far as visitor-driven revenues for the city, so that's not a bad place to plateau at for now. Last thing is we have 93 followers to our YouTube page, so we're 7 away from being able to have our own URL. So if you know anyone who hasn't signed up to the City of Avalon official YouTube channel, please encourage them to do so. Thanks.
And if I can do it, anybody can do it. Is it edible?
Thank you.
David Hart, Community Service. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
I'm asking. 4th of July was a hit. Fireworks went off. The reviews were good. We'd like to thank Garden State Fireworks and Curtin Maritime for working together to make sure Avalon got the show it deserved after 3 years. I want to thank the bands Aber Enriquez, Undercover Proyecto, and Catalina Eddy and the Buzzballs for supplying the music on the Front Street. The Spirit of Troy, the USC Marching Band, for their performance on the 3rd and doing little pop-up concerts after the parade. I'd like to thank the Grand Marshals, Rudy Pilch, Paul Moritz, and Jay Guyan for allowing us to honor them, for reminding us what is great about our island. Thank you to the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department for keeping us safe during that crazy weekend. Most of all, I would like to thank my staff for their hard work, especially Marissa Morones for organizing the golf carts and almost starting us right at 1 p.m. Also, the Public Works crew for the cleanup. That also includes our city manager who was out there with the broom for cleanup after the parade and the next morning. Overall, a great event, and now we just need to start working on theme for next year. We have taken the floats out of South Beach due to creating an environment that was unsafe and destructive. We were able to control what was going on when we had the staff on there, but it was after hours and when the misbehavior would ramp up. So we will have to decide how we plan to police it during those after hours to maybe be able to bring those back this year, hopefully. We have recently had graffiti vandalization on the skate park on 7/10, and it was pretty extensive. The cameras were down that weekend, so we don't know exactly who did it. But in response to the vandalization, we believe we might know some of the kids who were involved in that vandalization. And we have invited them to take a free muraling class this Saturday from 8 to 11 from our own Jenny Diaz. We think they might have an interest in art, so we want to show them how to channel their creativity and have an open, and we're also going to have it opened to the rest of the youth in our community for free. At 11 a.m., we will then hold a skate competition for our local kids and any kids who might be visiting. We will be handing out skateboard prizes, many of them coming from CSC, the Catalina Skate Shop, which Mo runs. And we'll be teaching the kids about their role in the ownership of the park. This will all be happening this Saturday from 8 to 12, so we invite the community to come out and check that out. We like it to be a big community day. I want to give a shout out to Austin Henry and his company Avalon Audio, Video, and Smart Homes for taking and embracing our fishing derbies on Wednesday mornings from 7 to 9 a.m. He has created merchandise that he gives as prizes. Council, that's what you guys have right now. Those are you just get those, soak those wet, and they sit on your neck and they keep you cool. But if you notice on there, he's also created a logo for the fishing derby.
It's very cute.
And he also sells the merchandise down there, and 100% of the money goes back towards the fishing derby. He has created. Okay, people can purchase them 100%. I'm right there. He has supplied fishing poles, drop lines, bait to all who needs it. He has also been hands-on in teaching the kids and parents on how to bait their hook if needed. He has also given out prizes of tackle boxes and everything that you would need to be a better fisherman. Austin and his business has shown a great partnership to upgrade what we already do for the community. His passion for fishing and the kids show with not only donating money and products, but more importantly, donating his time. So I want to give a big shout out to Austin Henry and his company. That's all I have for you guys right now. Do you have any questions? No?
Yeah.
All right.
Great
Thank you.
4th of July.
Yeah.
And I know I was thinking of something, but, so you all have done a debrief on the 4th, pretty much, everybody to, yeah,
Internally, right.
yeah. Yeah, okay, already, thanks. I mean, it was a great event. Okay, any other departments we're forgetting about? Okay, city manager report?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to follow up on that on the 4th of July. It was my first 4th of July out here. I heard much leading up to that about how involved it is, and I just want to thank the city staff. They went above and beyond. It was really incredible to see how involved and how much they do to pull that off.
Yeah.
And in particular, Public Works. They were there in the morning on the 4th, set up. They took it down after then. Then they were here at 4 a.m. They showed up for work in order to clean the streets. And when everyone went to work on Tuesday, it didn't look like anything had happened the day before. It's an incredible operation that everybody did, and in the meantime, they're trying to spend time with their family. So just want to thank everybody for all the hard work. I do want to mention briefly the conversations I've been having with the sheriff, and I thank Captain Badali for bringing that up tonight. As you heard tonight, we've had to remove the playground, the water playground equipment because of some problems there. I have heard that there's been issues at the movie theater because of problems there. We've had vandalism because of problems, and we have to start doing something. I think this is, maybe naive, but maybe it's youth lashing out, looking for attention, and we have to address it in some manner. And I agree with Councilwoman Lavelle. We do have to do it in a smart way. But I think we would also have to support the sheriff's office when they take this approach, because the complaints will come from parents, and I don't think that's the time to say, okay, well, we'll make an exception in your child's case. We have to address it. And I support what they're doing, and I've been very appreciative of them meeting with me to get to this point and to move forward. And then finally, I do just want to briefly touch on the boat fire last week. That was, did watch the whole thing. I did have a radio on me. The coordination between all of those departments was incredible. They made a tough decision to tow that boat out of there to prevent further damage, and I asked the chief the question, does that make sense? Could that thing explode? And he said, yes, that's why they're towing it out. But the people that were towing it out, the Harbor Patrol, I want to recognize their efforts, our fire department in the county. It was outstanding to see. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Right, thank you. City Attorney?
Yes, two things. First, I think this is about the 5th or 6th time every year we have our summer associates attend a council meeting via Zoom. So if you'll see on the screen, we have names that you don't know. We have 5 summer associates from all over California and the country watching tonight's council meeting to get an idea of what it's like to be a city attorney. So we want to welcome them. In addition to that, one kind of bad news thing, the legislation that would allow meetings to be done via Zoom in an easy manner has been stalled. And in fact, there's another competing bill that is much more restrictive on what cities can do, and maybe even limited to only 3 months out of the year that they can meet via Zoom. The league or Cal Cities and our office are trying to resurrect the bill that was more favorable. We don't know what's going to happen, but we are working on it. But there is a chance that if the bad bill, as we're calling it, goes, that we won't be able to meet like this. We have to do some kind of posting at residences, or have much more limited ability to have meetings over Zoom. So again, we're working with Cal Cities on that. There's been some newspaper articles that some cities have been less than vigilant in their operation via meetings via Zoom, and this is kind of like a backlash as a result of that. We're operating great. I mean, we are complying with the law, and we've actually had a more public input, and because of people's ability to easily access the meeting. So we are monitoring it. There will be, regardless, there's going to be a requirement that all meetings be available over the internet to residents. And so that's going to go through. It's just a matter of working on how we actually conduct meetings, and there's some questions there. So we'll monitor that, and we'll let you know.
Okay, excellent. The council member reports. Who would like to start? Go ahead, Lisa.
So met with Edison this week, so thank you guys. I know they're gonna give a report tonight, but met with Mayor Marshall and Edison out at the plant and had a fairly productive and most of the time positive conversation, and hoping that some of the initiatives they're working on are coming to fruition, and talked about ways we could assist and help with that. And I do want to thank them. They were appreciative of both Bob Greenlaw and his efforts, and also Audra McDonald and her efforts regarding city staff, public works, and grant applications. I did want to ask a question that came up in that conversation. Currently in the code, it states that enforcement for stage 1 of water rationing is completed by the city, by code enforcement, and that after that, stages 2, 3, and onward would be by Edison. The question arose of if that needs to still be the case. I guess previously there had been some reasoning as to why the city wanted to hold on to that for enforcement in stage 1. Since it didn't have to do necessarily with Edison bills. It was more of on the street, seeing people watering, that type of thing. But talked to both Chief Alegria and to Bob Greenlaw yesterday, and neither had a reason why it needed to remain with those departments. So left a message for Denise Ratty to check and see if she had any input on that, but just wondering if we can start that discussion and see if that needs to be changed in the code. And then they'll give the rest of the update regarding what's happening next with that, but looking forward to just hearing more from them and working more with them in the future as well. So it was a good conversation. And then met with a couple of different entities and people regarding one of the items on the agenda tonight, both Charlie Canby and David Zeller, and provided information that was given to me from Charlie to city staff to provide to council as well. And then tomorrow we'll be meeting with Councilmember De La Rosa and Principal Emma Rodriguez from Avalon Schools. Oh, and enjoyed 4th of July and didn't realize until the fireworks started I had been holding my breath, and was very excited to see them go off, and was very happy to squash rumors throughout the day that they weren't going to happen.
Yeah.
City staff, I've been in your shoes before, being voluntold with my sister to help out with 4th of July and doing the judging for the parade and everything else that goes on with that event, and you guys pulled it off effortlessly, and it was amazing, and just heard nothing but great feedback all day long. So thank you for everything you guys did. Fantastic job.
I got nothing.
Yesenia?
So I was actually able to attend my monthly California Contract Cities meeting in person. And I did also have to do a presentation. It was a quick presentation, but I have to do one on my committee and new things that I'm bringing forward for them. And also, like Lisa said, we do have a meeting tomorrow with Emma, the principal. It will be virtual. And I did also want to say that I enjoyed 4th of July. Growing up on the island, there's certain things that you always see on the parade that you want to do. And for the first time, although I did take my kid, but myself, I enjoyed being on the fire truck. So thank you for that. And I did also want to commend on how hard everyone worked. I saw Marissa, Carlitos, Dave, and right after the parade is over, I did see all of Public Works just get straight to it and start cleaning. So thank everybody for all of that. And that's it for me.
Great. Mary?
Well, I got sworn in on Thursday, and here I am.
And we're glad you're here.
I did meet with Charlie Canby and Dave Zeller as well. And it's been a really busy day, meeting with the city manager, the city attorney, and
Finance.
and Matt in the finance department, and pictures and just everything. But yeah, I'm getting my feet wet, and here we go.
Great. Welcome aboard. 4th of July, wonderful. I don't really have much to say. There's a lot of repetition, and we'll just move on with oral communications. And this is an opportunity for members of the community to speak on items that are not on the agenda. You'll be limited to 2 minutes, and no action will be taken. Okay, and nobody's on the machine there?
No, ma'am.
All righty, so we have a presentation. Luke, Southern California Edison.
Well, hey, good evening, guys. Jim Burkle here. I think I'm going to take it. So good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members, and Mary, congratulations. So for those of you who have not met me, again, my name is Jim Burkle, and I'm Southern California Edison's Director of Generation. I have responsibility for all of SCE's power generating facilities across the state, and that includes Pebbly Beach Generating Station, as well as our water and gas operations on the island. So we appreciate your time this evening to update you on the water supply situation on the island and our plans to address it. But I thought before I kicked into that, I want to introduce a couple of folks in the room, colleagues of mine. So first up is Rosalie Barcenas, and I can't see the audience, so I'll ask Rosalie to wave or stand up. I think many of you know Rosalie. Recognizing the tremendous amount of change we have going on the island, including power and water infrastructure replacement and regulatory proceedings, the company appointed Rosalie as the dedicated executive in charge of Catalina operations and strategy in April 2021. So in the last 15 months, she's done a lot to help drive progress on a number of projects we've got, but she's now taking a different role in the company. So replacing Rosalie, and also in the room today, is Anthony Hernandez. So Anthony, if you could also raise your hand or stand up. So like Rosalie, Anthony has many years of experience in different roles in the company, including significant amounts in customer service and energy procurement. It'll be very, very valuable in his new role. So over the coming months, we'll reach out to you to more formally introduce Anthony and then get him in front of our other key island stakeholders. But I want to take the opportunity to announce the transition from Rosalie to Anthony. So on to the topic at hand, which I'll kick off, and then I'll hand over to our island operations manager, Ron Haidt, who I think you all do know very well, and he'll walk through the details. But if you've got the presentation starting on slide 2, you'll see that California as a whole is in a severe drought condition. You've probably already heard, or you probably all heard, that Governor Newsom has issued statements calling on local water agencies and Californians to step up water conservation efforts, and the State Water Board has enacted measures to reduce water use. So Catalina, of course, not immune to drought, but the good news is we've done a lot to lessen our reliance on rainfall since the last drought by increasing our desalinized water production capabilities. And we've got further increases planned, which Ron will go into. Shorter term, however, conservation is the key, and the level of our main reservoir at Middle Ranch has continued to drop and recently hit the trigger for stage 1 conservation measures. Sorry, I've got a call coming in. So the Public Utilities Commission is currently reviewing our proposal to implement these measures, and we expect to hear from them shortly. We recognize that these efforts have significant impacts on our customers on the island. We don't take them lightly. Many of us on the mainland are already under similar restrictions. However, conserving now while we continue to press on with our infrastructure improvements is really our collective best strategy to try to push off and hopefully avoid more onerous measures in the future. So let me hand it over to Ron to walk through the details, and then if we have some time for questions and comments.
And just for the
So
record,
Ron, you want to take it?
just for the record, Councilwoman Strickler has recused herself. She is an employee of Edison, and just out of an abundance of caution, because this may result in any decisions in the future on Edison, she has recused herself.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. So I'm going to continue on with maybe a little more detail behind what Jim was just talking about. As we transition into stage 1, stage 1 is intended to conserve water supplies and defer more aggressive stages of rationing. That's the whole purpose of stage 1. And on June 6th, Middle Ranch reached 588.9 acre feet. So that's the first official reading we had below the threshold of 600, which is the trigger for stage 1. So on June 10th, we filed the advice letter with the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, to initiate stage 1. On July 7th, so almost a month later, the CPUC put a hold on that for further review. We don't know how long that's going to take. It could take, right now it's up for review all the way through October, but we're just waiting to hear how long this is going to take to implement. So as soon as we hear from them and we get an approval, it will be officially implemented. Meanwhile, we want to talk about, even though it's not officially in place, what we all need to do here and follow these rules that are in place for stage 1 so that we actually defer. Because I'm going to show you a little bit later the impact if we don't immediately do it. So you'll see this graphic on this screen, and Middle Ranch Reservoir is shown at the levels of Middle Ranch is shown in the blue. And so this goes back from 2011, and it shows the levels. And you can see there the gray bars going across show stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. So the scale on the left goes 0 to 1,000, and that's in acre feet, and our reservoir is filled at about 1,000 acre feet. So you can see what happened there in 16 and 17 and the worst drought in the state's history and how far down we got, and we actually entered into stage 3. And then where we're at today is the green vertical line. What's important to note here are the 2 lines to the right of the green line, because what we're seeing there is the one line that extends out to the right in the timeline is the line that, should we follow the conservation measures embedded in stage 1. If we don't follow those measures, we're going to be on that red or orange line and take a more drastic, steeper dive right into stage 2. Okay. So those Middle Ranch wells that are hydraulically tied to this reservoir are very, very shallow. They're alluvium wells. They're the largest water supply on the island. They're supplying roughly half the island's water, most of that obviously in Avalon. The desal plant is currently producing the other half to serve Avalon. Now, along with those stages, for those that have not been through rationing on the island, stage 1 just implements some conservation measures, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a second. Stage 2 is where the mandatory rationing starts. And currently our tariffs have those occur at stage 2 at 25% reductions, stage 3 at 50%, and stage 4 at 75%. So mandatory water conservation is estimated to preserve roughly 11.8 million gallons or 36 acre feet over a year. That's stage 1. And defer stage 2 by 2 months. So our current forecast, assuming we were going right into stage 1, was to have stage 2 implemented in September of next year. However, if we don't see a significant reduction here in stage 1 immediately, that will pull that up into July. And I don't think any of us want to go into stage 2 in July. So it's absolutely critical that everyone start implementing these conservation measures I'm going to cover in a second immediately, so that we can avoid going into stage 2 in the middle of next summer. This laptop froze. There we go. Okay, here, the main thing I wanted to note on this slide is if you look to the messaging on the left, you see conserve our precious resources. So everything we're going to be putting out here soon, including right there on the front of the dais, says conserve our precious resources. Once we get stage 1 activated officially and get approval to do so, you'll see the messaging change to mandatory water conservation now in effect. We didn't want to do that yet because it's not officially approved, okay? Now, we'll talk about the conservation measures or the restrictions in stage 1. There are approximately 50, or there are 15 of those. And I'm not going to cover them here. They are in the backup of this deck. So if you do hopefully put it on your website, customers can get to it there. It's also easily accessible in our tariffs, which are reachable through the sce.com/Catalina site. But let me give you an example, because it's been a while since we've been in stage one, of some of these key restrictions. Use of potable water through any meter when SCE has notified the customer in writing to repair a leak. So if we come to a customer and find a significant leak and ask you to repair it, you cannot just leave it. It needs to be repaired, or it needs to be shut off. You won't be able to use potable water that results in flooding or runoff, for washing buildings, structures, and other hard surfaced areas. Now let me remind you, this is for fresh water. You know, salt water can be used for some of those. You are unable to wash private or commercial cars or other vehicles except with the use of positive action shutoff nozzle or a 3-gallon bucket or fixed equipment to avoid wasteful use. So what this really means is you can't be out there with a hose with no nozzle that when you release it, it stops the flow. No water for construction purposes, no potable drinking water for construction purposes, and watering or irrigation except by drip irrigation, positive action shutoff nozzle, or bucket. Use of fresh water from fire hydrants at any time for any purpose other than fire suppression is restricted. Hotels, motels, and other business establishments providing overnight accommodations shall provide guests with the option of choosing not to have towels and linens laundered daily. The operators of these establishments shall prominently display notice of this option in each guest room using clear and easily understood language. The service of water by any restaurant except upon the request of a patron. Use of potable water to irrigate ornamental turf on public medians. And watering or irrigation will be limited to specific hours each day. And that period is 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Okay, next steps. What are we doing, both now and in the long term? So Edison's committed to improving drought resilience and maintaining service reliability even through the drought. We will continue to maximize desal production, which in 2022 we're registering all-time highs that we've ever produced here on the island. We will continue to execute the Phase 1 desal enhancement project. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, that's the grant funds we receive from the state to continue to expand our ability to produce water from our desal plants. The timeline for that project, it looks like most construction to be done next year in 2023, with us finally realizing the benefits of all that work probably early in 2024. So upon CPUC approval, Stage 1 will be activated, and at that time we will provide outreach and communications through City Council updates, Love Catalina's Thursday updates, newspaper postings, et cetera, et cetera. Lastly, we're evaluating updates to the water tariffs to optimize, to appropriately account for the latest demand trends and desal production, establishing future rationing levels and stages. So what we're evaluating is now with additional desal production, the Stage 2 need to be 25% for those that are connected to that drought-resistant resource, meaning the desal plant. So we're going through and analyzing all that right now. And once we have drafts of those plans, we'll come back to the community and talk about it. Lastly, I guess I just wanted to mention that we're seeing the most demand currently on the water systems that we've seen since 2007.
Wow.
So So there's a lot of water being consumed, which is a sign of, the economy's really good. But we need to slow that down a bit. So that's why we're optimizing and maximizing production out of the desal plants currently. Questions?
Can you tell, any way to tell where the majority, where the higher volumes of water are coming from? Are they coming from residential, from hotels? Can you compare what, as a whole, how they, I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Residential versus hotel.
Yep, we can see that, and we can see, I'll ask Luke to give you a response on that, because he tracks all that. But yes, we can see where the increases are. Okay. And Luke, is it pretty steady across the board, or is it more residential or non-res? I don't have that readily available. Okay. Yeah, we can provide it to you.
Okay, I'm just kind of curious, because we have so many vacation rentals, and they're really, and those vacation rentals are considered in the other residential.
Yeah.
And but they're doing a land office business this, now too. So I'm wondering if that's increased more.
We'll send it over to you.
Okay, just curious.
Any other questions?
Have the hotels been notified already about the option for the laundering?
The option, what's the option about?
Sending their laundry over.
The no service of the room.
Oh, the no
fresh
service?
towels, that type of thing, yeah.
It's a good question. We're just getting that word out now, hence why we're here.
But I will say a majority of the hotels on the island are not doing service, and service is by request only.
Yeah. So most of them are probably already there.
Are already doing it, yeah.
Okay. Anybody, Devin, on the machine?
No, ma'am.
No? Anybody from the audience have a question? This is your town too. Okay. Yeah. Great.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. So Luke, you're done? Oh. He didn't say a word. Well, Ron, and it's nice to have you come and talk. Yeah, appreciate that as well.
All right, Mary, we're done.
Hopefully the word's out there and will continue to be out there. I know you and I spoke to the LA Times in the last couple of days, and even though we're so happy we have desal, we still know that, there's more to come, so.
But it would be really helpful to get the little paraphernalia things with all of the Be Water Wise, and it's like, we had the stickers on the mirrors in the bathroom, after the drought, we took all those off, but it'd be nice to be able to get those back on and remind our guests that we are in the middle of drought.
Totally agree, Michael. We're working on that right now. So we were just preparing to have it all ready to roll into stage 1 right now. Now that's been delayed a bit. We don't know how long, but we're going to continue to get all that material ready.
Perfect.
I think it was from Lisa the other day about the shower timers and how she saw those as very effective the last time around.
When you did the shower heads, I love the shower heads.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize is that little button up at the top. I've had guests call me and say, your showers aren't working, there's no pressure. It's like, did you happen to hit the little button? I guess I did. They hit it, the water comes back out. I go, that's so you can conserve water while you're soaping up. Yeah. They're like, oh, so yeah.
Sadly, that happened to my house too.
Great if we can get more shower heads, because those are the best.
Okay, yeah. Sadly, that happened at my house too. So, hey, the shower's not working, and it was the same head. The other thing, I guess, it was good, Annie, that you brought this up, because in the past, at this point, well, without desal, we would have been, as Jim mentioned earlier, in stage 1 last summer, right, which means we'd be right now facing stage 2.
Right.
So it's a bit different this time around, and that it feels different because our peers on the mainland, in many cases, have already implemented all these measures and are making cutbacks, and here we are on the backside of that. So we want to keep it that way, and the way to do that is to follow these stage 1 restrictions so that we can slow consumption down a bit and hopefully get through the winter, get some rain, and not get to stage 2, but at least push it back as far as we can.
And I was on the council when we went through our beginning of the first big one, and going to league meetings and other council people complaining that they were gonna have to start doing these things. It's like, well, we're already doing them on the island. You're gonna get used to it, but yeah, so it's kinda nice being the other way around.
Absolutely.
One thing to add on the water conservation devices, so I've been working with Bob Greenlaw, and to appreciate his availability on a monthly basis to stay connected and coordinated, but he did kind of confirming, bringing supplies of those over to City Hall, since that's a convenient spot for residents to come and pick up shower heads. So those have been stocked, and we'll make a modest supply available there to provide to residences receiving water service.
Right.
So even though we're not in stage 1, there are some there.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much. And we will move on to the consent calendar.
Okay, so tonight on our consent calendar, we have seeking approval of the minutes from June 21st, 2022 regular council meeting. We have warrants approval for the total expenditures for June 13th, 2022 through July 8th, 2022, totaling $2,683,986.78. Item 3 is we request findings to continue to hold the remote telephone or teleconference virtual city council meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. Recommended action determine the COVID-19 state of emergency proclaimed by the governor still exists and has been considered by city council in deciding to continue to have teleconference meetings, and that state or local officials have approved or recommended measures to promote social distancing in connection with COVID-19, and that as a result of the COVID-19 emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health safety of attendees. Item 4 is a resolution adopting the memorandums of understanding between the City of Avalon and SEIU 721, which represents the Avalon Harbor Unit, and the SEIU 721 Avalon Municipal Employees Unit for a contract period July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. I would just indicate that we have had a number of negotiation sessions which led us to this tentative agreement. On behalf of staff, I do recommend approval of this. Those are the consent items.
Number 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do have item number 5, which is for the city council to act as the Avalon Municipal Hospital Board of Trustees, and that is to acknowledge receipt and approval of the CEO's June 2022 report from the hospital medical development, or the Avalon Medical Development Corporation.
I just wanted to comment on the report that they're going to be doing some construction and to create an infusion therapy center, which might be very helpful. I don't know what all they can infuse with that, but that sounds like a positive, very positive thing. So maybe something people don't have to go to the mainland to receive. So. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve items 1 through 5, and then just wanted to make a comment on item 5 as well. The rollout and follow through on the vaccine has been fantastic and phenomenal in town. I do want to ask the hospital if they'd be able to give us an update regarding the Paxlovid rollout. I've heard a couple of wobbles of just people having challenges being able to get appointments for that or get the actual prescription in time to be able to take it. And I don't know if there just needs to be some adjustment there possibly. But otherwise, I would move to approve items 1 through 5.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any comments? Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Item 6.
Item 6 under general business, there is a need to appoint to fill 3 terms of the Planning Commission. We would ask council to discuss the applications received, consider the recommendations of Mayor Marshall, make an appointment for the 3 individuals to serve as the Planning Commission for new terms expiring June 30th, 2026.
I would just like to say I respect anybody who wants to be on the Planning Commission, and I'm excited that Bruce Ferdig, Robert Kennedy, and Kathy Smith are willing to come back and join us for another 4 years. And so I don't know if there's further discussion or if there would just like to make a motion that we.
I'll make a motion to approve Bruce Frudig, Robert Kennedy, and Kathy Smith to the Planning Commission.
I'll second.
Okay, and call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. And so welcome aboard again. But I would like to comment, because it just says with one optional alternate member, and I don't remember why we started that a while back.
We
But-
did, okay,
Go ahead.
I can answer. The reason is because we have so many people with conflicts
Right.
that we often were in danger of losing a quorum, and so we decided, the council decided years ago to have kind of like a planning commission bullpen, where if someone was on vacation or we had conflicts, rather than drawing straws, we would have someone there to make that quorum of 4 people.
Yeah. And I don't know that, I mean, it's in the books, if we want to keep it that way. It just didn't seem like there's been that need for quite a while, and sometimes that person wasn't really in tune with what was going on because he didn't know when somebody was going to miss it.
Yes,
Sir.
you're notified. When I first got on the Planning Commission, I was an alternate.
Oh, you were?
I was the alternate. And then when somebody, I can't remember who stepped down, I took their place. But no, there were a couple of meetings that I sat out there, just in case I needed to come up here, that there was a conflict. So
Right.
you do get everything, you get all the information, you know what's going on. So you
Okay,
just,
because I didn't remember all the alternates coming to every meeting and doing that and being aware, and I can think of a couple of names, but no need to mention them. But, okay, if we still want to keep it that way, then we need to advertise we're looking for an alternate.
but it's not something that we absolutely have to have, but it's
Right.
nice to kind of have it there just
Keep
in
it there.
case, yeah.
Okay.
And I think it all depends on how the new planning commission works out, as if there's a lot of people that need to recuse themselves from items.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just keep it there, and starts to become a problem, we'll
Yeah.
hunt for one.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have just because of that very reason if people can't show up. But also, I think it's a great step if anyone is interested in getting a little more engaged to have something to go to attend, to understand what the process is.
Right.
So I feel like we should put that out there if we did not this round, to see if we can get an alternate.
How is it any different than us saying we need an alternate for the city council?
Well, the city council doesn't have an
So
alternate.
there's 7 of them, and there's
Yeah.
only 5, there's 7 of them and 5 of us.
Right. I mean, we could lower that, we have the ability to change the number of commissioners too, so if we wanna change.
Oh, I don't think we would want to do that.
No?
Oh,
We
I
could.
don't.
I mean,
We could.
if the issue becomes that people don't wanna sign up to do stuff.
Oh,
If
okay.
a smaller group would allow for a quorum to take place with a party of 5 and having at least 3 versus a party of 7 having at least 4, you could do that if you wanted to.
Yeah. So I think we're good for now.
Okay.
So, where are we?
Item 7.
Next item,
Okay.
item number 7.
Item number 7 is seek nomination and vote on a member of city council to serve as the mayor pro tem.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion, and then you all can decide. Michael Ponce has numerous years of experience on the city council.
Are you saying I'm old?
Numerous years on the city council, okay? And I know that also he's very good at correcting me when I make a mistake, so he must know how to run the meetings pretty well. And so I would like to nominate Michael Ponce.
Would you accept your nomination?
Sure.
Then I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded, so we vote on him first, and if you don't want him, then we come up with somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay, call for the vote, and you can vote for yourself if you want.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. You're welcome, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Do you still want to sit on the left?
I'll move over there at the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll stay here.
Okay.
Right.
All righty.
It's a whole new life over there.
Okay.
I've been over here
Cool.
for 8 of the years that I've been on the city, or 10 of the years that I've been on the city council, so it'd be nice.
So- And I'm
Change the scenery.
right-handed, so I can go like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'll leave the pillow for you.
I appreciate it.
Okay, audit committee.
We need council to appoint 2 members of the city council to serve as the audit committee.
Who's on it currently?
Yes, Annie and I.
Yeah.
Mary, I don't know if you're interested in it. It was really helpful for me to learn a lot about the finance side of City Hall and helped me just understand what was coming out of city coffers. So I don't know if that's something you want to do.
I would actually love to
Yeah.
do it.
And I'm happy to stay on. I don't know if Yesenia wants to stay on or not, or.
She's not listening to us.
Just 2 members, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary, you go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I'll make the motion to appoint Mary and Lisa to the audit committee.
Motion, I'll second that. Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye?
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
Oh, that's me. Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Okay. Evelyn, we appoint ourselves.
Yeah,
And
Correct.
Are you the current one?
I'm the current chair.
Yeah. Do you want to stay there?
Sure.
Okay. Unless anybody else wants it?
No.
I don't really know what it involves.
Doesn't really involve a lot.
No, it doesn't.
It's more oversight for financial and just literally bringing a meeting to order if we need to, and
It's done here.
yeah,
It's
it's,
all
it's
done.
part of our council meeting duties.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this only comes up every 4 years? I mean, this is it? and
Every
then-
2
Every
years.
2 years.
Oh, every 2
Yeah,
years.
so if you, so he could do it for 2, and then if you want to jump in
Okay,
and put your
yeah,
hat in.
I'll see what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So if you want to stay, you can stay.
Okay.
I'll make the motion then for Michael to stay as chair, and then the rest of us would all be on the board.
Yes.
Okay. I'll second that.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye?
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
The only question I had before we move on to the next item, I don't know if, I know Councilmember McGugan Cassidy's role was up with COG, and then also she sat as a council member on the connectivity group as well. So if we can have those 2 come back at the next meeting or when we need to. I don't know if it might work actually for connectivity to come back in 2 meetings after our next meeting. But yeah, just wanted to make sure those were figured out.
And, yeah, because COG, its first meeting is the first Wednesday of the month,
Which is what date? Where are we?
which is August 3rd.
Okay, so that's the day after. Okay.
Or we might miss that one.
Yeah.
The
COG is
Council of
Gateway
Governments.
Cities Council of Governments,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 16 cities.
I believe they're doing remote right now, so I don't know if we would be able to, if we seat them on Tuesday night and someone is able to join on Wednesday.
But I think they're going back to live.
Gotcha.
The discussion was.
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
And Cindy was the chair of that the last year.
Right.
correct.
And Cindy's gonna stay on the connectivity group.
She is, I think, as far as I know, our last discussion was that she was gonna stay on as a community member.
Yeah.
She's had a lot of time and effort and energy invested in it, and yeah, so. yeah,
And
which is-
Yesenia, you're staying on with Contract Cities, correct?
Yes, I am.
Beautiful.
I did sign up to attend the installation of the LA division of California Cities on August 4th. So what I would need to get is approval to approve the budget as the representative of Avalon there.
Okay,
That's not on the agenda, so.
Correct.
I know, but I just,
Future.
for next time, okay. All righty, well, great. Well, item 10.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 10 is a public hearing. Now, this is a continuance of the appeal of the Planning Commission Action 2201, approving a setback variance at 261 East Whitley. Briefly, if I could, Council, Mayor and Council, I just want to hit a few highlights quickly on the staff report, which has been amended since Council previously heard this matter on June 8th of 2022. Some issues came up during that public hearing, which Council asked for continuance in order to get more information from staff. That information has been provided, but briefly I want to point out and maybe clarify some things that were addressed then. Specifically, the history of this matter came before the city on July 17th, 2019 as a site plan. As a site plan, it did not require a public notice or a variance. Nothing else was requested at that time. So that's why there was some question of how come the neighbors weren't notified. That's the answer to the July 17th, 2019 site plan before Planning Commission. Then in November of 2019, a variance was requested regarding the height of the chimney. That was published in the Catalina Islander November 8, 2019. Notices were mailed to the impacted neighbors November 8, 2019. And it was also posted at City Hall the same day. On March 16th of 2022, a variance that is the subject of tonight's appeal was also before Planning Commission. It was published in the Catalina Islander on March 4th, 2022. Notices were mailed to all impacted neighbors on March 4th, 2022, and it was also posted at City Hall according to the notice requirements. Planning Commission, like Council, asked for a continuance of that matter to get more information, and it was heard again on April 20th, 2022. Because that was a continuance of the prior noticed meeting, another notice was not necessitated. So ultimately on April 20th, 2022 is when Planning Commission issued their decision, and then what we have would be an appeal, which was timely, filed on May 3rd, 2022 by Mr. Canby. That brought it to Council on June 8th, and then continued. I do want to point out that Council did ask for a number of documents that were provided with the staff report. Since the issuance of the staff report to Council, the city received a letter and photographs submitted by the Van Averys on July 18th. That has been forwarded on to Council and is part of this record. The city received a hand-drawn site plan by Charlie Canby. That has been forwarded on to Council for consideration. And finally, today, the city received a letter in opposition submitted by Leslie Warner, dated July 19, 2022. That also has been submitted to City Council for their consideration. So all those documents have been provided. Finally, the issue before Council, and I think this is important because a number of things were brought up at the last meeting, which I think were not relevant to the consideration. The consideration is very straightforward, that being the issue before you is should the Planning Commission decision to grant the variance of 7 feet to the rear yard setback at 261 East Whitley be overturned. That was the issue that Planning Commission ruled on. That was the issue that was appealed, that granting of that 7-foot variance. Avalon Municipal Code addresses the granting of variances and states that the granting of a variance shall only be considered when special circumstances applicable to the property, including the size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, and where the strict application of the zoning code deprives such property owner of privileges enjoyed by other property in the vicinity and under identical zoning classifications. That's Avalon Municipal Code 9-8.405. And I bring that up because I think it's important for Council to focus on that issue that's before you. A number of other concerns have been brought up regarding loss of non-conforming use. That's not an issue here. The use was residential. It's going to be continued to be residential. It is whether or not this variance granted by the Planning Commission was done so appropriately. If there's any other questions regarding specifically the staff report, I'd be glad to try to answer those. Other than that, I think Mr. Campbell was going to address as far as the conditions and the focus of the criteria to be looked at by Council.
Right, and if you look at about halfway through the agenda report, it's a document called General Plan, Land Use and Zoning Compliance. It's about halfway through your staff report. It lists what those 4 findings are, and that is the sole issue for you tonight is can you make those 4 findings? And those 4 findings are, 1, The strict application of the zoning ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. And then in that document there is the planning commission's findings, factual findings. Second condition is that the exceptional circumstances that apply to the development of the property, which do not apply to other properties in the neighborhood. That's the second finding. Third finding is the granting of the variance would not be detrimental to the public welfare or neighborhood. And lastly, the granting of the variance would not be contrary to the objectives of the local coastal program. So that's what you're really focusing in on, is those 4 factors that the planning commission determined had been satisfied for the granting of the variance. They have now appealed that, and so you're to focus on those 4 issues, because that is all that is before you, is the appeal of the granting of the variance, and those are the 4 factors that the planning commission determined justified the granting of the variance.
Okay, I believe I should open the public hearing, correct, Michael? I'd like to open the public hearing. The 2 parties involved are the Van Averys and Charlie Canby primarily. So let's see what we can do, if you want to come up and speak, to try to limit this to about 5 minutes each and see where we go from there, if you all want to speak.
Yeah, the appellate, we usually go first.
Oh, so that would be Charlie going
Yes.
first? I'm not an attorney, kids.
Yeah.
So Charlie, did you want to speak first? Okay, Van Averys, did you have anything you wanted to say first?
Mayor Marshall?
Yes.
You said set the timer for 5 minutes?
About 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Thank you.
Hello, Scott Van Every. Good evening. Yes, we own 261 East Whitley, and I have to answer a few things. Mr. Ponce, last time he had a couple of questions. One was, it was brought up that I had gone in on a weekend and I surreptitiously tore down a house without a permit. I do want to hit that. Right after, this was February 9th, a year and a half ago, Michael Palmer, who was the assistant city manager, thank you, approved my plan, and he said, go ahead and you can build. So I went almost straight to City Hall, and I went and I saw Rocio, and since it was COVID times, we had to sit outside under a tree, and I told her that I wanted to pull the permit, and she said fine, and she brought out a whole bunch of forms, and we signed them all up, and I paid her $20,000, and I really thought that I'd gotten a building permit. So I went, and about a week and a half later, we started demolition on a Monday. I wasn't hiding it from anyone. I thought I had a building permit, and John Gilbert showed up, and he had a very red face and a red tag in his hand, and he said, you're doing this illegally, and what you're doing here is bad, and I'm going to demand that you stop. And I said, wait a minute, I just paid $20,000 for a building permit, John. I didn't do anything illegal. And he said, well, let me see what you have. And he said, oh, no, you just paid development fees. I said, I understand. Don't stop. Go right now down and go get a demolition permit, which I did. So within an hour, I came back, and we were allowed to continue with the demolition. I wasn't trying to pull any fast one. It wasn't any weekend deal like everyone said. The second thing, Mr. Ponce, you wondered what I was doing for my neighbors and if I was just running ripshod and trying to build something. Mr. Franks at one point said that one of my workers had broken some pots or something, and so we paid him $400. The other thing Mr. Franks wanted is, he always hated from the time that I bought this property that there were a couple of trees that he thought were going to fall in his house. I asked him if he wanted to pay half. He said no. I still paid $2,200, and we had those trees taken out. We were just told by the city manager that what we were here for are for those 4 things that the variance was granted with the planning commission. The one thing that I really want to lay down, though, is that prior to this variance ever coming up 4 months ago, I had for a year been building on this house. I was given a building permit. I paid for the building permit after the development fees and everything. And I even tore down half my house based on that permit. My damages here are incredible. I followed everything that the city asked us to do. And so here we are today, not sure why. So, I guess that's it.
Okay.
Oh, anyway, the new building, the one thing I would like you all, I did leave packets, I hope everyone saw it. This picture, I think, pretty well tells the whole story. The A and the B. It's this new building supposedly is a distance of about this far, 3 feet. That 3 feet is one of the things that the Planning Commission said that for close to 60 years, this building has existed here, and the granting of this application will have very limited effect on the neighborhood. Furthermore, the full demolition of the subpar structure minimizes blight and abates any potential hazards. I don't think from this picture you will see that this affects the neighborhood at all.
Thank you. Sure. Charlie's part of the party. Charlie, did he? Oh, I couldn't see him. I thought he left the party.
I want to pass out this sketch that shows that by shortening the laundry room.
Oh, I actually gave them, I gave them a copy of that, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Everyone have this?
Everyone got one, yeah.
I don't think the managers have this.
Careful.
Hi, I'm Charlie Canby. I live at 242 East Whitley. I'm named in this as submitting the variance, request for a variance, or denial of the variance, but it's actually all the neighbors that I just happen to be the spokesperson for all the neighbors that surround this property. The reason for us neighbors protesting or being against the variance is we don't believe that the planning department followed the normal procedures when examining the variance. At the time that the variance was granted, the planning department wrote a recommendation to the commissioners to approve the variance. At this time, the planning department was kind of in a state of flux. Amanda Cook had retired and wasn't replaced, and other employees were doing her job. And we think that perhaps they weren't aware of all the details that have to be considered when you grant a variance. First of all, the Van Averys had a permit to remodel a single-family house, and then they found out that it wasn't worthwhile, so they tore down the whole structure, and they asked for a building permit to build a duplex. So at this point, and their building permit is for a duplex. At this point, they said, here's our plans, and they resubmitted the plans for the single-family house. So to this date, they've never submitted plans for a duplex, what's in dispute. They never submitted plans for what they wanted to build. After they tore down the structure, we believe at this point, when they applied to build a duplex, that we should have been noticed and that variance should have been granted then, or there should have been a hearing for a variance. The building permit was for 950 square feet, but the actual size of the structure they want to build is 1,350 square feet. So what they asked for doesn't match what they were going to build. So this is another dispute we have, is that the building department didn't really study the plans accurately. First, to see that they didn't submit plans for a duplex, and second, they didn't take any time to actually measure the square footage to see what they're really building. The staff said it won't affect the neighbors because it has nearly the same square footage. Well, the Avalon Municipal Code says that if you have a non-conforming structure, that you can't increase the volume or size of the structure. And when they submitted the plans, the wrong plans, the building department should have said, hey, look, you can't increase the size of your non-conforming structure. You've increased the width from the Louders property to the Sullivan's property from about 12 feet to about 15 feet. You have to stay within those confines. And then for the height, they went from, I've approximated it to be 24 feet to 28 feet. So they've increased the volume of their non-conforming setback, non-conforming structure. During the process of reviewing a variance, it's common for the planning department to go to the fire chief. He was skipped in this case, but I talked to the fire chief and he said, usually when there's a variance, it's passed on to me, it's part of the procedure, and I review it, but in this case, it wasn't. The staff never required of the Van Averys to show a hardship or a justification or rationale of why they really needed a variance. Their property is really large. It's over 5,000 square feet. And if you measure it, they have about 4,035 square feet of property available to build on. And they want to build, the square footage of their structure comes out to about 2,775 square feet. So they have plenty of area. And we believe that the planning commission should have said to them, you know, what's the hardship? What's the rationale for why you can't build within the confines of what's legal? The staff wrote that it would be a hardship for the Van Averys because they would have to redraw the plans. Well, of course they have to redraw the plans because they never submitted plans for what they wanted to build. So for the staff to tell the planning commissioners it's a hardship, that's not correct. They have to redraw the plans anyway. The staff said in the report that it would have no effect on the neighbors, but the staff never looked at how this larger structure would shadow the neighbors more. And of course it must have had effect on it because we're all protesting the variance. At one point, the planning commissioner, I'm almost done. I know, I'm hustling, Annie.
Thank you.
At one point, the building inspector was asked, can the Van Averys build their house without a variance? And the building inspector said, no, they need the variance. Well, I've shown that if you shorten the laundry room by 8 feet, that you can pull the whole structure up the hill and build this entire structure without the need of a variance. The plans that they submitted don't show parking for a golf cart. What I understand is the Van Averys own the lot across the street and they plan to park their golf carts there. But as far as I know, parking has to be on the site or property. You can't own a house on Beacon and park on, Clarissa. You have to park on the site. Now, if the Van Averys did do a lot tie, they could go and ask for a variance, so they could park across the street. So for the best of the public, I suggest that the variance be denied. If the Van Averys want to continue, then they can resubmit correct plans for what they really want to build and go through the whole process again. If they want to park across the street, they can do a lot tie and then go to the planning commission for a variance to park across the street. If the variance is granted, it should be confined to the old original encroachment of 7 feet into the property by 12 feet wide and about 24 feet high. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Claudia Canby, 242 Whitley. I know you probably got Leslie's email in your packet, but I would like the public to hear it, so I'm going to read it, since she can't be here. Dear Mayor and Council members, thank you for your patience and thoughtful consideration of the appeal for the setback variance at 261 East Whitley that was before you at the CC meeting on June 8th, 2022. I appreciate that you want to gather more information to make an informed decision. The building inspector stated that other properties in this medium density zone have variances for the 10-foot setbacks. I would ask that you acquire more specific details of how many variances there are and when they were granted on East Whitley and study the zoning map carefully. As I am sure you are aware, West Whitley is in a different zone and therefore the setbacks are 3 feet. It was also stated at the meeting that the new structure will be fire sprinkled and have a 1-hour firewall. It is my understanding that this is required by the building code for new construction of this size, and it's not an extra precaution to justify the request for a setback variance and the minimal access to the back of the property. My opinion, as stated in our letter to you, has not changed. The owners should be held accountable for the demolition of the building and the subsequent loss of legal non-conforming status. They should have had the foundation inspected before pursuing this project and been well aware of its condition and the consequences of tearing it out. They do have plenty of square footage on their lot to accommodate their desire for a larger 2-unit structure. This property is not comparable to the flats where lots are small and every inch counts. Why should they receive special privileges because of their choice to demolish the building, when all of the surrounding homeowners object and do their best to follow the city building code? While reading the staff recommendations, I see that they state the footprint will remain almost exactly the same. How is this possible when they are increasing square footage, and what does almost mean? Furthermore, why is this an exemption or excuse when they lost their non-conforming status by demolishing the foundation? Planning Commission adopted Resolution 22 in your item 5 in the meeting, granting the variance and noting the project's exemption for CEQA compliance with blah, 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 and that its structural footprint will remain almost exactly the same as it has existed since original construction. You as a council have an opportunity to uphold the municipal code, to send a message to all property owners and the Planning Commission that you take variances very seriously. The zoning in Avalon was created with a vision and a purpose for years to come. Why destroy these windows of space between lots on the hillside? If you deny this appeal, brought to you by many longtime residents that surround this property, you are setting yet another precedent that will have lasting and detrimental effects. Over time, variances will become the common routine, not the rare allowance for extenuating circumstances. You are punishing all of us who live here and support this community and follow the code when upgrading our homes by giving special permission to a homeowner who didn't plan properly, educate themselves about the municipal code, and investigate fully the building before beginning the project. This decision matters. It will have ramifications for years to come, and you as elected representatives have a responsibility to uphold the Avalon Municipal Code and to respect the request from the majority of homeowners in the neighborhood. Thank you for your time and consideration of this appeal. Respectfully, Leslie Warner.
Thank you.
Richard Warner, 306 Whitley. Thank you. So this thing started simple enough. It was a request to remodel, renovate their existing duplex, which had been sitting there for years, hidden by these ficus trees. And when we bought the property, that's where it was. You know, could I go up there and make them, you know, have their 10-foot setback? No, it's already been built. It's a non-conforming thing. That's the way it is. You know, what was I supposed to do? I couldn't do anything about it. Did I want it? I would rather have the code. Fortunately, the city fathers, in their wisdom, put together you know, a plan to, as non-conforming things went away, we would not keep going that road. So it just didn't go as they planned, you know, all of a sudden this was wrong and oh, this got demolition and I don't want to go into that. But this thing is like right there. It's, you talk about the findings are definitely affect us. It's not about that. And the findings that were even given, they were kind of a lick and a promise. I mean, you know, there was a written into the report from the Ann Avery's to Susanna, the planning department. I'm in receipt of your letter advising me that you legally have to go through a variance meeting, nor will you charge me anything for it. It's almost like, okay, there was like all these findings weren't accurately done, in my opinion, because there's a lot of things that we have issues with. And for one, regardless of that, it's just the Avalon Municipal Code. You have a code, it was in the staff report, it was non-conforming status, got torn down. And you start to go ahead and build, you want to build it back just like it was. It doesn't make any sense. The building inspector, I don't know, made a Freudian slip last time when he came up here and he said that as far as the wall, because we all know to keep your non-conforming status, you have to leave a wall. You have to leave part of the structure. And they didn't. They tore it down. That's not my problem. That's what happened. And then they changed the whole plan. They did. The plan is different than a duplex. You gotta, if you look at that, it is different. But regardless of that, when the building inspector went on site and he kind of had this mini planning commission meeting amongst themselves and the owners and made a decision. But even after all that, he got up here at the podium and he said, quote, well, no quote, but I'm paraphrasing, he said, I would have had him tear that wall out anyway. Well, what does that mean? So here you have to have a wall. That's part of the condition. You have to have a wall to do this thing instead of going back and starting over. But he said I would have had him tear it out anyway after the fact. To me, that's like someone comes up for a harbor permit, and they want to do X, Y, and Z in the harbor. And the council says, well, you have to do this, you have to comply with this, and you have to do that. You do all that, and we'll give you the permit. And he says, yes, sure, I will. And then he gets the permit and just goes in and does what he wants, does none of that. It's kind of like the same thing to me, except for in the harbor permit, you can just revoke his permit. This, you can't. Once it's built, it's built. So, I don't know. It befuddles me that you have this code that I really believe in your code. I follow the code as best I can. It just bothers me when you don't. So, the other day, someone told me, and this might be hearsay, but one of the council members actually said, well, we can't punish the Van Averys for the mistake the city made. Well, first of all, that's the first time I even heard anybody allude to the city making a mistake, which obviously something wasn't right. But then, if you're not punishing the Van Averys, who are you going to punish? You're going to punish all of us? All the neighbors who don't want the variance? What did we do? We didn't make the mistake. We didn't tear the wall out wrong. All we did was follow the rules. So it just befuddles me. It really is frustrating. I understand they want to build their house. I didn't have a problem with fixing what they had, but at this point, there's so much convoluted things going on. You've got this, we postponed, the planning commission didn't understand. They had to go back and talk about it again. And then they still were confused, voted wrong. The council, you didn't understand it the first time. We went to another one, and I asked the city manager, is it going to be the same council? Oh, yeah, sure. I don't know why they didn't vote on it last time, but obviously they did. I'll close with this. Well, I think I've made my point. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Other comments? Is there anything on the machine, Kevin?
No, ma'am, no comments.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment? So once I close the public hearing, that means they can't speak anymore?
Correct.
Okay. Oh. That's okay, I didn't close it.
Rod Louder, 265 East Whitley. I live next door. A couple comments came up tonight that kind of confused me. He said he tore down half of his house. What was torn down was an apartment in the back of the house. a little, like, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 bedrooms in there. If somebody wants to build a duplex, does that mean that he's adding a third unit on that property, for one? And I guess the only thing the city council really has to ask, though, is has he fulfilled those 4 criteria to receive the variance? And I don't believe he showed enough of a hardship, other than the fact he's got to rewrite his plans, which could have happened if he'd presented those plans to the planning commission in the first place, and they said, no, you'd have to do that anyway. So there's no physical hardship, there's no specific reason for that, other than the need for a larger footprint of his house. The back of the house, as far as Mr. Warner and Robert is concerned, is going to be about 4 feet higher than it was originally. Back around their properties, it kind of came across my property and then it stepped down the back of my property, and I could literally walk level with my property right onto theirs, right on the road. So it's gone up about 4 feet. I don't know if that makes a major difference, other than the fact it's going to take away some of their sun, some of their breezes through there, and things along that line, which are another reason that you have these setbacks, is so that the air can circulate and the light can get in, and the safety issue. As far as safety is concerned, I don't know about the rest of you, but the homeowners insurance in this town is skyrocketing. And the city continues to grant these variances for people. The guys who figure the price of your insurance are way back in Omaha somewhere, looking at the planning commission and saying, wow, they keep putting these variances on here. I don't care, they don't care how compliant the house that's being built is to the new laws. They just look at how close they are together, and the fact that the city's passing variances raise your rents up, or your costs up. And that's gonna affect the entire city of Avalon, not just the neighbors. So if you say it doesn't affect the surrounding neighbors by granting these variances in general anywhere in town, I know some places have to have it because you can't have a 10-foot variance down on the flats. It just doesn't work. It's you have a house about 2 inches wide. But an area like this where it's not necessary, they have not shown any absolute need for it, I'd say follow the law. It's a good chance for, and welcome our new members of the council, by the way, for you guys to set a precedent and start saying, let's do it right, do it the way it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Zeller, 5 Cabrillo Drive. I'm involved with the Van Everys as their contractor. I was not the contractor who tore the building down, but I do understand that in order to put in foundations that comply with current engineering codes, the notion that you can leave part of it in place, it's cumbersome and it's in the way, and there is a need to remove what's there so you can put in something proper to support the new structure. So that's something that comes up a lot here, that people have talked about that they've lost their non-conforming status because they removed this. At some point, it had to be removed to build it properly. The other thing was the height. The appellants are talking about the height being a problem now, and they want to move it 7 feet up the hill, which is going to increase the height significantly. And any spot on the property, they can go up 28 feet. So if you can put this building down at the very bottom of the hill and keep it as low as possible, it impacts the neighborhood the least. So to move it and comply with the 10-foot variance, it's going to impact the neighborhood much more significantly than it does right now. So the best option for the surrounding people, despite what you guys are saying, would be to put it right back where it was. And that's what they do have a permit for. That's what they turned in plans for. The plans are for a single-family home, not a duplex. And we are building parking off-street in front of the house. So that's been addressed. And then certainly the topography with on a crest of a hill with it low in the back, low in the front, the topography does create a difficulty and a hardship to move the building anywhere from where it was. Is going to impact retaining walls, impact foundations, and as I said, move it up the hill and increase the height. So the Van Everys have tried to put it back where it was, which in their thought and opinion was going to keep it as least intrusive as possible. And that's all I have to say on those 2 things.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. So I do have a question, though. If any of us want to question any of the appellant or the applicant or whatever, we can do that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll start. When we look at what our options are, based on staff recommendation, I don't feel the need to refer the matter back to the planning commission. So if we can get rid of that one as an option, that would.
agree.
Okay.
We approved it twice.
Exactly. Then there's B, require a transcript or recording of the testimony and all other evidence upon which the commission made its decision, and after receiving such evidence, take such actions as its opinion is indicated. I don't know that we have volumes of information here. I don't know that that is a necessity to go back and look at the planning commission, to listen to those.
But don't we have the planning commission?
We have the actions on all of that. It's just, but do we want to hear them talk?
No. No.
Council? Do we need to?
No.
No?
I
Okay,
don't
I'm
think
looking
so.
for kind of consensus on that one.
Sorry, which number?
Require a transcript or recording of the testimony and all other evidence upon which the commission made its decision.
We received that already through this packet.
Okay, so, okay, well, that was an option here. Discuss and determine appropriate actions by either affirming the action of the planning commission, so either affirming or not affirming. Either agree or disagree is what we're down to.
Right, yes.
Just wanted to make it simple.
Do you uphold it, the council is being asked, do you grant the appeal, which is overturn the decision of the planning commission? Or do you, or deny the appeal, and that would uphold the decision of the planning commission? We will, if that were the council's action, whatever the council action is, we're gonna come back with a resolution at the next meeting that incorporates the facts that were discussed tonight into that resolution, so that on all four findings, you will make that. But, tonight's action is to grant or deny the appeal. Then we'll come back with a conforming resolution that'll discuss each one of the four factors.
So when I was thinking about getting into city government, I applied for planning commission twice and didn't make it. But I was watching and studying and learning about the planning commission. So I'm familiar with this because I watched these. They happened to be going on at the time when I was doing this. So I do have kind of a lot of background on it. I'm sure as much as Charlie and everybody else, if you watch the planning commission meetings. And it seems to me that they were approved. And then when the unfortunate tear down and stuff like that happened in that weird little gray area and stuff, but they were directed by city staff, the planning department and everybody, to do it. And so they did, and they're putting it right back where it was, where it's been sitting for the last 60 years. So I really don't understand what the problem is. And I know you're bringing up all kinds of interesting things, but I don't see why where they park their golf carts has anything to do with this wall that's going back right where it was. And, the name, I know you didn't like it when you first bought your house, Mr. Werner, but it's there, and it wants to go right back there. And it's not gonna be shielded by the trees because another neighbor didn't like the trees. But, so, maybe after it's built, they can plant some trees or something and they can grow up and hide it, if that's what the big problem is. But, that's just what I see.
Does any council, any comments? Well, do you have anything on your machine, Devin?
No, ma'am, no comments have been received.
Okay. If nobody wants to make any comments,
I'm gonna make a comment.
oh, okay.
I'm to the point of councils saying to the neighbors, screw you, we don't care how you feel about anything, we're gonna do this. And I'm getting tired of doing that to neighbors. Seriously. They have come in here numerous times to say, what you're doing isn't fair, you're allowing somebody to do something that they're really not entitled to. But the easiest thing for us to do is to say, okay, we're gonna grant the variance. And we've done that a couple of times, especially to these neighbors. I'm supporting the neighbors on this one. They tore down the wall. That took away their non-conforming status. To buy a property and not know that they were gonna have to do major things to it. If you're gonna do anything in this town, you're gonna research what you have to get done. And I'm just to the point of, at some point, the neighbor's needs or feelings should be important, and we don't care.
I object to that statement. You may be speaking for yourself, but I'm not saying that I do not care about the neighbors.
I did not say that to you. I'm saying that, and you're just on the council. You have not been part of the decisions we've made. I'm just saying this is how I feel that I will be supporting the appeal.
Okay. And I have a question. So let's say we decide to go with the Cambys, for lack of it. Okay, then what happens? I mean, do we have to have recommendations? I mean, we're just, so then what happens?
Then it goes, then the variance is denied, and they go back to the planning department, come up with plans that do not include the variance, and then they go through a new process with those plans without the variance. And they could ask, it's hypothetical, they could ask for another variance of another type. You know, they could come back with plans that comply with the city codes exactly, that may have a different impact upon the neighbors if it is in fact moved to a different location. So they would just basically have to go back to the drawing board with knowing that the council is not going to grant the setback variance, and they could then decide how to build the house without that setback variance. You could also, if you granted if you denied the appeal, you're also empowered to grant conditions on the granting of you know, on the variance. You can add your own conditions. In fact, when we had the Vaughns, if council may recall, the Vaughns was originally a denial of the planning commission, then it went up to the council. Council overturned that thing, but added conditions that were not originally found by the planning department. So you could add some conditions in order to make, you know, yourselves more comfortable with any findings.
I guess some of my confusion is, and kind of been asking that question. Okay, so Charlie Canby comes up and says, well, this is how the house should look. Well, that's a little presumptuous, I think, on my part, or for anybody to do that, and to say how much square feet do you actually need in your home. I think that's a very personal decision, and if I need 2,500 square feet, I need 2,500 square feet, for whatever reason. And then when you hear Mr. Zeller talking about, okay, if we went with Charlie's plan, and moving it up the hill, then you've got that 28 feet that goes all the way up. That doesn't require a variance, but now it's affecting the Louder property even more. The Rob's property a little bit more, and I haven't heard any complaint about or just really discussion about, there was the hedge that was this tall, and I don't think this retaining wall is going to be any higher than that hedge was. Is that correct? Can somebody give me a shake? Is the retaining wall that's gonna be put up there? Well, number one, it's much safer than having a hedge replaced there.
The retaining wall is much smaller than the height of the hedge, and will serve to retain the whole hillside.
Okay, and,
It's safer, water retention, water runoff.
right, okay, and, yeah, so to me, that's much safer. I also understand on the, I don't know, north from south, east from west, but on the upside of the property where they're putting that 3-foot setback, which was not there before, which is much safer. So perhaps y'all don't think, some people don't think that the hardship was the best hardship they could come up with. I don't know about that, you know, I mean, but it is expensive to have things done, and they do have a lot of money invested. But that shouldn't enter into it, I guess. And we've been putting people on the planning commission, at least I have, for 8 years, and I've been happy with what they've come up with, so I would deny the appeal. That would be my recommendation, but.
A question on this, and I'm not sure if it's for staff or for perhaps Mr. Zeller. On the plans that we have currently, I'm not seeing any location denoted for parking. Is that something that got added on to the plans? That was one of my questions originally.
If you could come to the
Come to the mic,
microphone
yeah.
and answer that.
Either Mr. Bennett, yeah, either one of you. I was just wondering where it was on the plans, or if you could at least show me on the actual.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you. I'm not the bench, but thank you. But just where that ended up on the design of those. That's what I'm wondering, if we have the most recent set. Which we might, or it might have been emailed possibly, and I can check my email too if you need me to. I just didn't see it on there, so I wanted to make sure.
I thought the parking was going across the street.
So originally, that's what I was understanding, was the parking was across the street, and there was a whole thing with that I was gonna ask about as a separate thing to make sure that it's included as an inclusion if this was to be improved, but.
This detail does not show it, but there's another, I don't know why
Okay.
it's not included here, but the front stairway is gone right now, there's a golf cart there, and I've been instructed and hired to build parking in that area right directly in front of the house.
Okay,
And reroute the stairway up to the
okay,
house.
okay, thank you. So I don't know if you guys see just where that was and where that's located. Did you guys see that already, or? I don't know if you care to know that or not. That was one of my questions.
They took out the stair.
Okay.
It's just the front stairway.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm still, and I think this is the challenging part for me, is having been a planning commissioner, I appreciate it when the decisions of the planning commission are respected. I know it's tough to get to a decision. They've gone through several meetings with this. They were instructed by city staff to get started on their project. The fact that, and I've discussed this with multiple people who have asked me questions about this, if these had been addressed at the time of application in terms of needing the variance to maintain a non-conforming structure but be able to take down the wall due to safety issues, I don't believe that would have been an issue. That would have been a significant finding to make sense for why that wall would be able to be maintained because it was applied for properly, and be able to be torn down because of the safety aspect of it. So knowing those details, that makes me think that this should be approved. That being said, I was trying to find and couldn't find a reason, and going back several different documents, why it was that stretch of area had a different setback in the first place. I don't know if it was fire safety. I don't know if it was drainage and that's not a need anymore. I don't know if it was utility corridor. I don't know what it was. But it's the only spine. It's literally a dot in the middle of all the high density housing that is that 10-foot setback. I think that the improvements made with the retaining wall, I was talking to Mr. Zeller and the discussion about adding some vegetation down there that would help to suit and kind of make the area a little more approachable. That the fix of the wall itself and the construction being new is good. Do I think that they could, you know, I don't disagree with you that the plans from Mr. Camby are a little presumptuous. I appreciate knowing where his brain works and trying to understand that he was more trying to be potentially helpful, maybe a little overstep, but helpful. And the biggest thing I think I'm concerned about is just knowing that you guys are all gonna have to be neighbors for a long time. So knowing that and understanding Michael's concerns, I appreciate that, Michael, as well. And I think I've erred a lot of the time on the side of neighbors with concerns. But I don't believe that the situation we're in would have been the situation we were in if we had gone through the variance process to begin with, and if the contractor that is no longer part of this project had also followed the rules and steps of what they were supposed to do. With that being said, my inclination currently would be either to, one, grant the variance as it is and move forward, or two, one of the options was to bring it back as an entirely new process. I don't know, because of course hindsight feels like it should be 2020, and it is not necessarily. The Planning Commission could have gone a different way if they'd heard this originally, but I suspect based on the discussions they had, based on the findings they had, based on the variance approval they made, that they would not have, that this would have been approved. And I think if it had been in order as it should have been, I don't even know that it would have ended up back here necessarily. So with that, I think I would be in favor of denying the appeal. I would, you know, I know that there's been discussions had amongst the neighbors and the homeowner and city staff and city manager, and I don't know if there is still a compromise or middle ground that could be a thing to discuss and do. I don't know that we should have to expect it. I think one of the things that people value in this town is being able to do with their property what they want to do. And any homeowner that is part of the appeal group would feel the same way. And I think that if you had been told, we're gonna build back to the same lot and we got a variance for that, you all would have said, okay, that was, the process was followed. It's gonna be safer structure than it was and it's fine. And I think it's literally hinging on this technicality that is causing a lot of this. And I think I would afford looking at this in a broader sense, because I've known almost all of you for most of my life. I would afford you the same consideration that I'm affording the Van Everys as well. And so that's why I'm making that decision.
Yesenia, did you have any comments?
Well, one, I believe I said this to Dave, I just feel horrible for both parties, really. And to echo what Lisa said, I really wanted to try to find a middle ground because they are going to be neighbors for a long time. And I wouldn't want people in our community to be, you know, hostile towards each other, especially living that close. So I'm sorry for everybody for all the inconveniences that you are going through. This is not an easy decision, and for me, it's one of my first. So I'm doing a lot of listening because I don't want to make the wrong decision.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, most of the decisions don't have a lot of the emotion involved when you know the players. It makes it much more difficult than deciding on, well, just about anything else, city budget or whatever, you know. So, or who our city attorney is, things like that. So, anyway, is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. May he make one comment?
You have discretion. You can say
Okay.
no.
I
or
can
yes.
say no, but okay, Charlie, come on now.
If the variance is upheld, I would like to see some definition to the height and width and depth of it. We've established the 7 feet, but if you say 7 feet, it's carte blanche that they can go from one neighbor to the other. I believe the Van Averys wanted to reestablish their old non-conforming area setback because the Avalon Municipal Code says you can't increase the area or volume. And the old width of the encroachment was 12 feet, and it was 7 feet into the property and about 24 feet high. And so if you want to give them back what they had, you should have the caveat to your vote that they're allowed to go in 7 feet by 12 feet by 24 feet. Thanks.
Can somebody like Dave Zeller speak to that? I mean, because if you're going the 12 to the 7, does that give you that mountain, that gives you that, oh, and then.
If you could, come into the microphone
yeah,
so we
out.
can.
Whoops, oh, okay, now you're, wait, hold on.
They said 7 feet back, but they didn't tell in the variance that they granted, they didn't say how wide it could be, what the distance could be from the Louders property to the Sullivan's property. So when they say 7 feet, they'll go, okay, I got 7 feet. I can go within 3 feet of the Louders property over to within 3 feet of the Sullivan's property. So it's huge. It's a huge increase in the volume that they're getting. It's a block of property, a block of structure encroached into the setback. The old, I'm saying it again, it encroached 7 feet toward Robbie Frank's house. It was about 24 feet high, and it was 12 feet wide, according to the old plans. So if you approve the variance, you should uphold the Avalon Municipal Code that says a non-conforming structure can't be increased in area and volume.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, I'm listening. Do you want to accept the non-conforming flew out the window?
That's correct.
But
Yeah,
the
he's
non-conforming.
talking about the square footage of the old versus the square footage of the new, and I'd have to look at the new plans to see exactly how many square feet that is relatively old, but it's not huge, and it's not encroaching or not approaching the Sullivan property to the east any more than it was. There's a deck out there, but I'd have to look at the plans to see it specifically, but Charlie's talking about the actual square footage of what was existing to what the new plans show. But it's not a massive increase in volume or square footage.
And they did move it,
They moved
3
it 3
feet
feet
away from the
which
Louders,
moved the
right?
entire thing over 3 feet. Yes, they moved it so we have access down for fire, and so it moved the whole structure from the top all the way down to where we're talking about over 3 feet, which certainly moves it at the bottom over 3 feet toward the neighbors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, both. Yes. So I'll get the party started, or ended. So if I want, okay, so is this a matter of denying the appeal or approving the variance? What's
It
the
would
action?
be, the action is, the motion, the appropriate motion would be to deny the appeal.
I would rather approve the variance than deny the appeal.
Well,
Sounds
what's
nicer.
before you is the actual appeal, I'm sorry.
Okay, I make a motion to deny the appeal.
I'll second.
Can we make as a condition of approval should we make a condition of the approval that the volume and/or square footage is either equal to or within a certain percentage of the original footprint?
That would be an amendment to the motion that they would have to accept.
Right. We're just doing discussion now before
Right.
the vote, right? So if you wanted to amend or not. I'm not asking it as an option. So the variance, well, maybe I should ask this question first, I guess, of city staff and Scott. The variance of the non-conforming structure both gave the variance for the wall to be put at the same place, but also to go over the original square footage and volume?
Yes, it's, the only thing here is the setback variance. They still have to comply with the code in all other aspects. floor area ratio, height, you still have to comply with the code. You're making an exception on the setback. That's the sole issue on the
Right.
appeal.
But
They still
because-
have to comply with
Because
everything
the
else.
setback is being allowed, the setback difference is being allowed, it changes the volume and structure of the property, of the house.
No.
Because they're building up further than they were before. There's no height variance required, though, because they're under the height envelope. But does the non-conforming structure lose its non-conformity because they're adding volume?
Well, the non-conforming structure lost its
When they
status
took
as
the
an
wall down.
because it was torn down. So
Right.
you're starting on a blank slate, and it is, and you're asking to move the setback on this particular property for the reasons that Mr. Zeller and the applicant have explained in the planning commission.
Right.
You still have to go through the plan check when you're going to build it. You still have to comply with all other municipal codes.
Okay.
And there's a floor area ratio too, where you can,
Can't go over
you
that.
can't build a, there's a certain volume of a house that you have to have in Avalon. And you
Right.
can't exceed that.
I think Mr. Camby is asking that the square footage volume be maintained the same, but that's not part of this application, or is it?
Well, it's not, you would have to add a condition.
Right.
And then you would have to add a condition to the approval for that to limit it to that space.
Well, how about this? There's a motion and a second. Let's do this vote, and if it doesn't pass, then we'll discuss things further.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay? Does that
Call
seem
the
like-
vote.
Okay.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
No?
Councilmember Lavelle?
So the vote, if yes, is to agree to deny the appeal?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna go with no.
Councilmember Schickling?
No.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I'm so used to being,
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
no.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
Okay, motion fails.
Okay. At this point, send it back to the planning
So,
commission.
well, no, so we can make an additional motion, though.
You
to
can make an additional
We
motion.
can.
Yeah.
We can.
So my motion would be to deny the appeal. However, approval of a plan check would require that, and I'm looking for some assistance on this discussion, if you guys would be willing to do this or not, would require that the scope of the project, of course, comply with all lot to size ratios, but also not exceed the growth by, I would say 15% seems relatively fair, given the fact that they're going up in height and volume.
So so to clarify the
They're not
motion.
going up, but they're not going up in
They
height.
are going up in height,
Oh, from 24 to 28?
yes.
So so to clarify, I think the motion is to deny the appeal on the condition
Right.
that the total volume of the new structure does not exceed what the old structure was plus 15%.
Correct,
So I have a question.
yes.
With what is proposed now, what is that percentage?
That's what I'm asking. I would like to make a decision, but we don't have the exact square footage, which is what is driving this question for me.
Yeah, so what, do we know, does the builder know what the
Is
square
it-
footage would be versus what it was?
I couldn't speak on that percentage-wise right now, no.
Okay, I'm sorry. Charlie, go ahead.
The old structure was about 24 feet high. You can do the math. 24 by 7 by 12. And the new structure they want is 28 by 7 by 15.
Do those numbers sound right,
I
Mr.?
think I'd have to look at the plans.
Okay.
I have the
But he
plans.
said, okay, so let's do the math. She's doing that.
I'll do it. Okay. The old structure was 2,016 cubic feet.
Yep. Versus 2940.
And what do you want to give them, 15%?
That's what she's recommending, 15% of 2940?
I think my issue here
That
is
gives them 302 cubic feet more.
Right now, they're about 40% over what the original size was.
That's 2,318 cubic feet.
Yeah. So if they're approximately 40% over, is everyone okay with that?
So
Do you have an issue with
that'd
that?
be fine. Tell them the new.
Charlie, let me ask this question to the
Okay, we're
council
done.
first for a second.
Sorry, Charlie, thank you.
Sorry, thank you. My question in this is just that if we're granting this appeal, if we're allowing them to go back to the same line that they were, and they're able to build that back to the same setback that they want to try to limit the scope of that project so that over time, these plans don't balloon into something massive like a block. The current plans, I think, provide the best option for the neighbors in terms of having daylight, airflow, access, while still allowing the homeowners to build to the line that they want to. So I think I'm okay with this, but I also don't want this to balloon bigger than what this is right now, is my concern. I arbitrarily chose 15% because I wanted to know what they were claiming the actual square footage and volume was to begin with.
Right.
But it's about 40% basically what they're getting. One, are we okay with that? And two, if we are we okay with setting that as the current limit so that this doesn't increase in scope and size?
I don't feel comfortable with 15% at all.
I think 15% is too low, and I would agree with you.
Right. I mean, I just know what they're building on the flats. Come on, kids. And
right.
People want to maximize what they have, and I don't blame them. If I had the money to do something like that, I would do the same thing.
Right.
And
well, and we can. I think the appropriate time to discuss that part of it is during the general plan planning. We can go back and change lot sizes if we choose to. We can change what those setbacks are, or we can bring it up in front of council before that if we choose.
But it's one of those things that people go, oh my God, look at what they're doing to the neighborhood, and then they build it.
Right.
Just like Bonds.
Right.
And then they build it and they go, oh, thank God, or oh, this is beautiful, or oh.
Oh, this would have been nice up the canyon.
I remember.
I couldn't vote.
I remember.
I couldn't vote on that one.
Yeah.
But, so there's no way I would feel comfortable with 15%. And I guess the question would be, and how actually would they change it? You know?
Right, well, that's fine. They can change it if they choose to, but that's my concern is it goes from something that makes sense for the neighborhood, that has the idea that you want it to be this. So I don't know if we say that this square footage is the largest it can go and that's it.
You could make a motion.
Yep.
That if we could refer to that document that is submitted somehow, and the total volume of the house will not exceed the document that was presented to the city council with that variance.
Okay, well, then my other caveat would be, if we came up with a number, that the neighbors could not come back and complain again.
Well, this is it.
I mean, let it go to the planner, and whatever happens, happens, because they might not like what they do with their 25%. And so I don't think that's right.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, like, if it matches the plans as they are right now, if it matches the plans as they are right now, the scope and size of it could not significantly change. I think that's where I'm going for. I don't want this to balloon into a box. I don't want them to build to the entire lot, and I don't think any of the neighbors do either. And, was looking at the plans, if they were to move that setback all the way up the hill, you get 28 feet from the baseline of that property. So you're losing literally the first 2 stories of view for Mr. Lauder's house.
Exactly.
And you're getting a ton of shade in the morning on every house behind them.
Right.
This allows that not to happen, which is good.
You move up the hill.
Yes.
To Mr. Zeller's point, you move up the hill, the retaining wall still goes up.
Correct.
You can go up 24 feet, which would block more.
28 feet.
28, which would block more than what it's being proposed.
Yes, significantly.
And
The
so.
building itself, the house itself would go up.
Would go up, and
Yes.
how attractive is that?
Right.
Then they're gonna come and say, well, now look how tall you are.
Right.
So I don't know that that's the answer.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. I'm okay with denying the appeal, but saying that the scope of the project should not exceed what is currently on the plans. The scope and size, volume,
The
and
plans that are currently, the latest plans that are currently with
correct.
the city.
Correct.
Which is what you're looking at,
Correct.
right?
that are attached to the staff report, right? We wanna-
Well, and that's my question is, I don't know if the scope of the project has changed because of the parking spots also. This is not the plan with the parking spots, so I don't know if the city has a copy of that latest document.
I believe so, but the parking spot isn't taking away, my understanding, square footage of the building.
Okay,
No, just took away the stairs.
right,
Yeah.
okay. So that would be my motion then, is to deny the appeal with the point that the property, as the plans are filed currently with the city, would be the maximum size and scope of the work.
That's 12 by 7 by 24.
Right,
So no 15% or any kind of variance?
correct.
Correct.
Correct,
If that was a motion, I'll second it.
okay.
Any further comments amongst us? Call for the vote?
Call the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Strickling?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
No,
Mayor Marshall?
No. Good night, Tony.
Good night, Tony.